Before I start talking about the game in question, I first need to make a few things clear. This is first of all not an attack or complaint video on Backpack Hero or the developer behind it. I do believe that the dev is responsible for everything that is both good and bad about Backpack Hero, but I won't go out of my way to either insult or intimidate the person who made this game. Second, this is, just like every single time I do one of these videos, my opinion, which you are 100% allowed to disagree with or even comment on if that is what you want. So with the boring intro out of the way, what is wrong with Backpack Hero? That is the question I will try to answer in this video. Because how can a game like Backpack Hero that had a successful Kickstarter and has won multiple rewards end up receiving so much negativity from its players? If that sounds interesting to you, then sit tight as we explore the dungeon and world of Backpack Hero. So I think that it's best for all of the people who don't know this game or just doesn't have much experience with it, that I start by going over all of the good things about Backpack Hero. So if you already know this game or just don't want to listen to the good things about it, then skip to the timestamp on the screen. We will start at the most important aspect about making a game, which is the main idea. Now, Backpack Hero is not your standard dungeon crawler RPG, since there are a few things integrated into the game which makes it unique. Because you are not only exploring a big dungeon with hordes of enemies, but also the hero and rebuilder of a whole town. If we start down in the dungeon, there is only really one main objective, which is to get to the end. Yes, there is also a story for you to follow in this game, where the reason you are going to the dungeon in the first place is to find your missing mother. But the gameplay is still centered around making it to the end alive. You do this by using various weapons and items to beat off the enemies in your path. There are also quite a few NPCs you can run into, where some of them are traders and others are gamblers. The combat system by itself is very simple. You just click on whatever item you want to use and then the game uses said item. But where things get unique is with the sorting system. I promise it's more interesting than it sounds. At the start of the game you find this magical backpack which gives you super strength and other questionable abilities. Now there is only a specific amount of space in your backpack, meaning that you have to pick the items you are going to use and then cast the rest aside. You do have the ability to level up and increase the space in your backpack, but the principles still stay the same, since you by no means have enough room in your backpack for every item in the game. And that is actually it. That's right. All you have to do in order to play this game is pick whatever item you want and then use them at the right time. Yes, there are small gameplay details that I have neglected to cover, but I think you understand what you are doing in Backpack Hero. And before moving on to the city builder part of this game, I don't actually have much against the dungeon gameplay in Backpack Hero. I think that the simple gameplay and overall presentation of the dungeon creates a pretty good and addictive gameplay loop that makes you want to keep going. But all of that positivity is about to take a turn for the worse, because now we have to talk about the other part of this game, which is the city builder. First of all, what is this? Why is this a part of the game? And why don't we get any backstory to what happened here? As you can probably hear, I am not a big fan of the whole collect resources and build a city like we are playing Stardew Valley part of the game. Now, I don't have anything against city builders. I think that most of them are good and pretty chill. But what I don't understand is, why do we need this part? I think that just having a complete town with everyone to begin with would have been a better choice. You would still have the ability to talk with all of the NPCs, unlock new challenges and items. And if you still really want the player not to have access to the whole town at the beginning, then just lock some parts of the town off and then implement a key item that must be used in order to open that locked part. All of this is of course my personal opinion, but I think that if the city part of this game was like this, it would have created a better flow and overall gaming experience. Since the focus would be on the dungeon part, where the town would serve as a little break in between, and of course not separate the gaming experience. I also think that having a complete town to begin with also allows for a lot of creativity. There are so many possibilities when it comes to shops and structures that could have been made if the town was already complete. Yes, it would require more work from the developer to design all of these new structures, but once they are there, then everyone has access to them. I think I for now have rambled on long enough about the town part of this game, so let's return to the dungeons for a moment. Because even though I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the dungeon part of Backpack Hero, I still think that some things could be better. Where the first thing I want to talk about is item usage. Now, there are a lot of items in Backpack Hero, so one would probably think that you end up using a lot of these items and make different builds. But that is not true, at least for most people. Because a lot of the bad reviews of this game have come from people who think that there isn't enough variety in the items for them to explore different types of builds. Personally, I kind of, but also don't really agree with this. There are a lot of challenges in the game that are centered around using a specific build or keeping certain items all the way to the end of that attempt. Where I think things start to fall apart is with all of the other items. You always have the ability to pick whatever items you want when you level up. And as you play the game, you will start to see some items reappearing, meaning that you will most likely end up using some items more than others. And that's where our problem starts to show itself. Now that you have these favorite items that you know are good, why would you ever use all of the worse items? I think unless you are very interested in the game, you just won't end up using all of the items that there are in the game. And even though that's alright and probably intended, this problem might start to affect other aspects of the game, such as the challenges and shops, where you might not want to complete certain challenges solely because of the items you are given at the start or have to use throughout the attempt. All of this of course depends on the player playing the game, since some people will want to experience and use all of the items that the game has. But it seems like the majority of players think that more should have been done in terms of using all of the items in the game. Moving on to another thing about the dungeon part that I don't like, we have to take a look at a lack of replayability. Now, I said earlier in the video that I liked the gameplay loop of Backpack Hero, and that is still true. But I cannot for the life of me find many reasons for me to return to this game. This mostly has to do with a lack of updates from the developer, but I still think that there isn't much for me to unlock in this game, aside from a few characters, buildings and deeper layers of the dungeon. I will still finish this game at some point, but I think that most people and almost myself give up on playing this game because they aren't interested enough in the story or the main gameplay to see this game through to the end. And I know that I still have some things to do in this game, but due to a lack of twists and interesting long-term gameplay, Backpack Hero ends up feeling more like a grind rather than an epic adventure. And maybe I'm just too quick to criticize. It's no lie that I also wanted to make this video before I complete the game to see if I was wrong. I know something like that may sound a bit weird or crazy, but I sometimes think that people, including myself, end up complaining about how bad a game is without having seen everything in the game. Because I have a couple of times had a negative opinion towards a game only to realize after completing it that I actually really liked it. And I have a feeling that it's going to be the same story with Backpack Hero. I right now think that the game is an absolute grind, but I also thought the same thing about Mario and Luigi Brothership, yet I still ended up loving this game and completed it 100%. So what I am basically saying with all of this is, please explore and play games all the way to the end. I know that some people who are watching this video will try this out and be surprised by how good some games that they thought were bad actually are. So to finish this video off with a suggestion from me to you, other than the one I just made, try not to focus on winning and instead focus on exploring and losing. There are so many possibilities in Backpack Heroes, so just let loose and forget about winning, at least for a while. And with that, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Now if you have any ideas for future videos, then please leave a comment about it down below. Remember to leave a like and a sub, and until we meet again, bye bye!